The year is 1975. Your alarm is not your phone. It is a distant factory whistle cutting through the frost. Your coffee is technically chicory. Your newspaper tells you nothing you actually need to know. You pull on your clothes, step into the gray morning, and you begin a day in which almost anything normal could get you arrested. Welcome to the Soviet Union, the only place on earth where buying a pair of jeans, telling a joke, or being unemployed on a Tuesday could earn you a very serious conversation with a very serious man in a very gray coat. $1 American, just one, tucked into your sock drawer like a secret you are not allowed to have. In the Soviet Union, foreign currency was not just frowned upon. It was a crime. Owning dollars, trading them, or even accepting them as payment could land you in prison for up to 8 years. The state controlled all money, all exchange, all value. If you somehow got your hands on a Western currency, you were expected to hand it over to the government immediately. The official exchange rate was laughably rigged, but on the black market, a single dollar could buy you things the Soviet economy simply could not provide. Medicines, cigarettes, a taste of the outside world. And for that temptation, the punishment was devastating.
Jeans, just denim pants. But in the Soviet Union, they were practically a passport to another world. Western clothing, especially American jeans, was treated like contraband. You could not buy them in any official store. If you owned a pair, it meant you had connections. It meant someone in your circle had traveled abroad, or dealt with foreign sailors, or navigated the black market with enough cunning to bring back a pair of pants that the government had decided you were not allowed to wear. Jeans became a symbol, not just of fashion, but of freedom, and the state knew it. That is why they banned them. That is why owning them was an act of quiet rebellion. Music, rock and roll, jazz, anything with a Western rhythm, all of it was illegal to possess, illegal to distribute, and illegal to listen to in public. The Soviet state had its own approved music, patriotic anthems, folk songs, classical compositions by approved composers. But anything that sounded too American, too free, too individualistic, that was dangerous. So people made their own records. On X-ray film, they literally pressed audio grooves into discarded medical X-rays, cut them into circles, and played them on modified gramophones. They called it bone music. Music pressed on ribs. Music etched onto skulls. Rock and roll printed on the bones of Soviet citizens. Played in secret kitchens while someone kept watch at the door. A joke, just a joke. about Brezhnev, about the party, about the absurdity of life under a system that promised everything and delivered nothing. In the Soviet Union, telling the wrong joke in the wrong place could destroy your life. Article 58 of the Soviet Criminal Code made anti-Soviet agitation a crime, and a joke counted. People developed an entire culture of kitchen humor, jokes told only at home, only in the kitchen, with the tap running so the microphones hidden in the walls could not pick up the words. The KGB did not just monitor public spaces, they bought apartments. They listened to conversations. They recorded jokes and used them as evidence. A punchline could be a prison sentence. Not having a job, that was illegal too. In the Soviet Union, unemployment was not just an economic problem, it was a crime. The state required every citizen to work. If you did not have an officially registered job, you were classified as a social parasite, a person who lived off the labor of others. This law was weaponized against artists, writers, and intellectuals who did not fit into state-approved professions. The poet Joseph Brodsky was charged with parasitism because he did not have a proper job. His job was writing poetry. The court told him that was not a real profession. He was sentenced to internal exile. The state decided what counted as work. And if your work did not serve the state, you were not just unemployed. You were a criminal. You could not just move. You could not decide to live in Moscow because you liked the city. You could not relocate to Leningrad because you found a better opportunity, the propiska, the internal residency permit, dictated exactly where you were allowed to live without a propiska for a specific city. You could not legally rent an apartment, get a job, or even access health care there. The system was designed to control population movement, to keep people where the state needed them. Workers stayed in industrial cities. Farmers stayed on collective farms. And if you dreamed of something different, the bureaucracy had a very simple answer. Number the propiska turned the entire country into a system of permissions where your life was not yours to direct. Radio Free Europe, the Voice of America, the BBC World Service. These were not just stations, they were lifelines, and listening to them was illegal. The Soviet government spent millions jamming foreign radio signals. They erected massive antenna towers designed to drown out Western broadcasts with noise, static, and interference. But people still listened. They stayed up late, adjusted their shortwave radios, and strained to hear words that their own government would never allow them to read. News about the world, news about their own country. that the Soviet press refused to print. The act of tuning in was itself an act of defiance, and the state knew it. Having a shortwave radio was suspicious. Listening to foreign broadcasts was dangerous. But people did it anyway because the truth, even through static, was worth the risk. Art, not the right kind of art. The Soviet Union had official art, socialist realism, heroic workers, glowing factories, smiling peasants, marching toward a golden future. That was approved, that was funded, that was displayed. Everything else was suspect. Abstract paintings, avant-garde, sculpture, art that did not glorify the state, was not just ignored, it was actively suppressed. In 1974, the KGB literally sent bulldozers to crush an outdoor exhibition of nonconformist artists. Paintings were destroyed under metal tracks. Sculptures were smashed. The event became known as the Bulldozer Exhibition. The state was not just censoring art, it was physically destroying it. Because art that made people think, art that showed truth instead of propaganda, was a threat to a system built on lies. And yet, through all of it, people survived. They told their kitchen jokes. They listened to their bone music. They wore their contraband jeans. They painted their bulldozed art. They hid their dollars and tuned their radios and wrote their poetry in kitchens with the tap running. The Soviet Union tried to control everything, and it failed. Not because of armies or revolutions, but because of ordinary people who refused to stop being human. Every illegal pair of jeans, every forbidden song, every suppressed painting, every whispered joke, they were not just crimes. They were proof that no system, no matter how powerful, can completely extinguish the human desire to be free.